Good morning, my name is Monica Mezzalama. I am a plant pathologist and I am in charge of a seed health laboratory at the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center based in Mexico. And I am pleased to announce you the first International Phytosanitary Awareness Week, which was organized by the CGIAR Gene Bank platform, and where all the centers of the CG that work with conservation and distribution and production of germplasm are involved. The international exchange of germplasm is essential for sharing international public goods that the centers own and that centers have in their gene banks or in the breeding programs. The CGR centers collect, conserve, and use the genetic resources of important crops to develop superior varieties resistant to biotic and abiotic stresses or that can reach higher yields. The germplasm produced and conserved in the CGIAR banks is regularly exchanged with national and international partners who will use it in their breeding programs. Germplasm exchange, however, has inherent risk of introducing exotic pathogens. And to prevent this risk, several safeguards have been established to prevent the spread of pests and diseases transboundary. These quarantine or phytosanitary measures are enforced through national and international legislation. The objectives of the Awareness Week are to increase awareness about phytosanitary obligations and emerging challenges and control practices in use at the CG centers, showcase tools and technology for GHU units and phytosanitary controls in CG centers, conduct joint activities with the National Plant Protection Organization to increase knowledge on established and emerging threats to global agriculture and prevention methods, disseminate information about the germplasm health unit functions to diverse stakeholders, about good phytosanitary practices in use, and disseminate the knowledge and the technologies for adoption by partners of improved and updated phytosanitary controls in germplasm exchange. CIMMYT is part of a CGIAR, and there are 15 centers distributed around the world. Each center works with a crop which is relevant to the area, the geographical area where it is sited. And as far as CIMMYT, our mandatory crops are maize and wheat. Our headquarters are in Mexico, and we have 13 offices spread around the world where we also do breeding and germplasm distribution. CIMMYT possesses one of the largest collections of wheat and maize accessions in the Wellhausen-Anderson Plant Genetic Resources Center. In total, we have approximately 100,075 accessions of maize and wheat, which are available for researchers and collaborators in national programs around the world. We have a database with more than 1,000 collaborators registered every year. We distribute millions of improved maize and wheat seeds, and also, as I mentioned, from our offices in Colombia, China, Ethiopia, India, Kenya, Turkey, and Zimbabwe. Each seed has an incredible potential for improvement and resistance to different biotic and abiotic stresses that we have in different parts of the world. So the importance of this seed is so relevant to our collaborators. Nevertheless, here I just would like to show you the distribution map of our material. Every year we reach all these stakeholders around the world. Nevertheless, the risk that we have by distributing the germplasm is to carry some quarantine or non-quarantine, but still of economic importance, pathogens carried by the seed and the germplasm. So we have at least 3 levels of prevention to guarantee that we are not jeopardizing the phytosanitary condition of each country. At an international level, we have the International Phytosanitary, the International Plant Protection Convention, signed by 183 countries, who agreed to produce the International Phytosanitary Certificate for each shipment that is exchanged, and that warrants that an official inspection has been carried out by the exporting country. Then we have at the national level the National Plant Protection Organizations, and here we have a series of regulations, guidelines, standards, and surveillance to exert the stakeholders to apply required standards. And at the CG level, each center distributing germplasm has a germplasm health unit that controls and ensures the accomplishment with the international, national and international phytosanitary regulations of the material that is distributed every year. Mexico, CIMMYT, has 3 laboratories, one in Mexico, at headquarters, which is approved by the Mexican phytosanitary authorities, and it is accredited with ISO 17025. And both these recognitions are mandatory in Mexico for having the possibility to operate a diagnostic laboratory. And at the same time, these recognitions provide for our collaborators a guarantee that we are working with standardized procedures, that we have regular internal and external quality controls, and that we are accomplishing with the host country regulations. In Kenya, we have a laboratory that is more focused towards the detection of a maize pathogen that is affecting, unfortunately, Eastern Africa very seriously, which is maize lethal necrosis. Since 2013, we have this laboratory. And in Zimbabwe, we have also a laboratory where we test the seed for the presence, the maize seed for viruses, among them sugarcane mosaic and maize chlorotic mottle. And we have installed in 2017 a plant quarantine facility in Matsowe in collaboration with the plant quarantine services. This facility is devoted to the multiplication of healthy seed for distribution in Southern and Western Africa. What is important and what are the challenges that we have to face in our activity? We have to monitor the germplasm to maintain it free from seed-borne pathogens. To do so, in our laboratories, we have qualified and retained human resources. This is the most important part, in my opinion, of our job, because competence and capacity building are fundamental for carrying out all the control measures that we have to implement. We try to use and have implemented updated methods based on international standards for seed testing. And of course, we have to accomplish with the Mexican, in the case of Mexico, but of the national and international phytosanitary regulations. We need to produce healthy and safe seed, and this starts with the management of experiment stations where we have very well-trained personnel and inspections carried out regularly to ensure that no pathogen will establish in the crop. And we have to maintain our relationship with the national plant protection authorities. This is very, very important because it's only by collaborating and by working together that we make sure that we are posing no risk to any country while we exchange germplasm. When we talk about pathogens, just let me tell you what they are, who they are, where they are. The pathogen can be on the seed, in the seed, or carried along with the seed. It means that they can surface contaminate the seed, they can infect the seed, and they can be carried with the seed like nematodes, galls, sclerotia, bunted seed, weed seed, etc. Seedborne pathogens have also another characteristic. They can be only seedborne, which means not necessarily transferred to the resulting plant, or they can be seed transmitted, which means that they can be transferred via the seed to the progeny. Under the epidemiological point of view, these two definitions have different implications. Under the phytosanitary point of view, they don't. We do not want any pathogen, seedborne or seed transmitted. We are mainly talking about fungi, viruses, nematodes, bacteria, and phytoplasma. And the procedures that we have to follow start, as I was mentioning, in the field, where we have designated plots for growing seed introductions, which means seed coming from abroad, and seed multiplication, where we produce a seed for distribution. The separation is really physical. It means that it can be kilometers apart. This is to reduce the risk of contaminating with any unwanted pest. On these plots, we carry out field inspections regularly to be able to detect the presence or the arrival of a pest and to determine whether we can control it somehow or if we have just to eliminate the infected plants. And after this, at harvest, we take a sample of the harvest and we take it to the laboratory for for laboratory testing. The seed health testing helps to identify the health status of the seed lot. Once a pathogen has been identified, an assessment can be made, either to see whether it is a new pathogen of new introduction, in which case it means that we have to immediately consult with the national phytosanitary authorities to ask what we can do with that germplasm. Or maybe it is not a pathogen of quarantine importance, still we have to evaluate the impact that the presence of that pathogen may have once the seed is planted in the field. So whether we can recommend some suitable measures to reduce or minimize the contamination on the seed, or it is possible that there is not much we can do and the seed needs to be discarded anyway. The seed health testing methods that we adopt in our laboratories must accomplish with some important characteristics. Reproducibility, which is extremely important in terms of standardization. The method needs to be completely standardized in the sense that we follow protocols that are established and that we cannot modify according to certain rules. It must be specific. The test needs to be specific for the pathogen that we need to find, to detect. It must be sensitive enough to detect the pathogen at lower levels. It needs to be validated. It is to be harmonized. And it has, if possible, to have the characteristic of determining whether the pathogen is viable or not. Under the phytosanitary point of view, this is not so important. Whatever is present on the seed for us is a positive, but it can be also an additional information to know whether the pathogen is still alive or viable. It must be a robust test, not where we do not have influence from the external environment when we perform it. It is good if it is a quick test that gives us results very fast. And also it is nice if it is a test that is not so expensive. It must be rigorous. Of course, sometimes it's difficult to gather all these characteristics, but it is important to have them in mind. A very important part of the seed health testing that there is no time now to discuss, but we need to keep in mind, is that the sample that we deliver to a laboratory for testing must be homogeneous and representative, because the test and the results of the test will be given on the seed that is delivered to the laboratory. So that seed needs to be reliable, and therefore the results will be reliable. The seed health procedures can be summarized in these two graphs, but I will not go through all steps, of course, but just to make you understand that we follow certain policies and procedures that ensure that at the end of the process we can release or we can reject the seed. The sample comes to the laboratory, it is analyzed, and in both cases, if it is an incoming seed or if it is an outgoing seed, and the results from the laboratories can be positive or negative. If it is positive, is when the seed lot or the germplasm is rejected. If it is negative, then the germplasm can be used for distribution, storing, or planting in the field again. In conclusion, I would like to say that the germplasm health units and the phytosanitary controls that each CGIAR center has in place are very committed to prevent the spread of pathogen and pests. We need the support of the national plant protection organizations, and we need to collaborate actively with them in order to increase the knowledge, and in this way to increase the level of prevention against the threats that we are facing every day, especially in these times of climate change, where we have emerging pathogens or re-emerging pathogens that we thought they were already controlled. And the importance of our role is also in the dissemination of the information about our function and what we can offer to the diverse stakeholders about good phytosanitary practices. And for this reason, the Awareness Week has been announced and it is carried out to make us more visible and to invite you to contact us for any problem or collaboration you would like to establish with us. Thank you very much.